Well, hello. You're watching Much Ado About Something today, and I'm Donna. Well, I'm in here. Gardening season is full force now. Spring is here. Things are warming up. I've got the seeds started, and I'm out gardening every day. And there's the one thing that I need every year, and that's to make a gardener's salve. So I'm going to share with y'all an easy way to make a gardener's salve. I've got some organic beeswax here. I've got an herb. You can use comfrey, plantain, thyme. There's many herbs that you can use to make herbal infusions. Of course, you have to do this months in advance. I made this infusion last year, and I'm able to use it this year, but I'm going to need at least 1 cup. I strain it through this little sieve or this little strainer right here. And I'm going to need at least 1 cup of this herbal infusion. So I'm going to strain it right through the strainer and let that strain for a minute while I go through the other things that you're going to need. So we're going to need 1 cup of infused herb of your choice, plantain, comfrey, mullein, thyme. Those are some things that I recommend that you infuse oil so that you can use it when it comes time to make your comfrey. Of course, the oil that you put in here can be fractionated coconut oil. It can be olive oil, whatever kind of oil you desire in your salve. But I'm going to need at least 1 cup of oil, liquid oil. And then you're going to need a container to put your stuff in. Here's a container I bought. You can use these that you can buy that are little canning jars. Here are some containers that I saved from products that I used. And you can also use those. You can also use tins. These are some tins I ordered off of Amazon to put salve in. And you can also use these. Whatever you have on hand, whatever is most convenient for you or easiest for you to obtain. You're also going to need a double boiler. Here I just have a pot. You can just set a bowl in here. I happen to have this thing right here. And I just put it in here, and that's what I use. I use this as a double boiler, but you can just set a bowl in here if that's what you have. We're going to need this to melt our beeswax. Now you can add other ingredients like the shaved nut butter. This is really good. That's a really great thing to add to your salve. Now another thing that you'll need to add to your gardener salve is some kind of essential oil that is good for fighting germs, and it's like natural antibacterials. I have red thyme right here. This is one of my favorite oils to use, and I'll just need a few drops of that. That's what I'll be using. That's what I've got in this dropper bottle here. You can use pine needle oil. You can use lemongrass. Anything that you really like to smell and that has beneficial properties that you're looking for your skin. After you've got your oil that's drained out of your herb, you can just put your herbs in your compost pile or feed them to your chickens, whichever you choose to do. And we need a cup of oil to 1 ounce of our beeswax pellets. Now you can weigh your beeswax pellets out. I'm just going to guesstimate it. I've been making this salve for a long time. This salve, or different variations of this salve. So I'm just going to go ahead and put about 1 ounce of beeswax pellets in my double boiler. The pellets are much easier to use than the blocks. I sometimes buy the blocks from the farmer's market and use those because, they come from locally grown honey, comb that's in the honey, and those people have purified it and they're selling it there. So sometimes I buy those blocks at the farmer's market. But you can get your honey wherever you normally get it. Your beeswax, I'm sorry. It's beeswax. I can't hold it too close to the double boiler or this thing will fog up on me. But I'll get you as close as I can to show you. Now I'm just going to add just a little bit of the shea butter, because shea butter has the wonderful properties to add moisture. And a lot of times when you garden, your hands get cracked and dry. So I'm just going to add just maybe 1/4 of an ounce in there. So that'll be in our gardener's salve. I'm going to go ahead and melt it on in here. Shouldn't take too long for that to melt together. It's my solid wax there. Now my beeswax and the shea butter in here has got a good golden color, because these are raw and natural certified organic yellow beeswax pellets, so they're yellow. You can also buy white beeswax pellets, so they come in a variety, just depending on how processed they were. These are white beeswax pellets that I've got here. So it just depends on what kind you get. This salve will have quite a bit of color to it because it's got the yellow beeswax, and then I've got the green and the oil infused from the herbs. I normally use fractionated coconut oil or olive oil. That's the two oils I've been using to make my salve lately. Now while that's melting a little bit, I'm going to come over here and get my jars ready to pour the salve in. Now I usually get one good jar like this. That's what I keep up with. Make sure you get yourself a label, because you'll want to label your salve, especially if you make different salves for different purposes. Now these jars are clean. I'm just going to go ahead and open 2 of these jars. I'm not sure how much this will make. It's been a while since I've made it. Last year, I made one last year, a jar like this, and one jar like this lasted me all year. Now, I want to wait and add my essential oils into my jars, because if I add it into this double boiler over here, then it'll stick to the sides of that and I'll lose some of it. So I'm going to wait to add my essential oils and put them into these little containers. Let's see what I'm going to add here. I think I'm going to add 5 drops of red thyme oil. And then 3 drops in this smaller one. Red thyme oil is really strong. It's a powerful smell. And it's not something that you want a whole lot of. I'm going to add about 5 drops of rosemary oil. And just 3 into the smaller container. And that'll be what I add for my essential oils. I went ahead and added a little more of this red thyme, because I think this was the white thyme. And I like the properties, the antibacterial properties of the red thyme. So I went ahead and added some more into this. Alright, I've got my cup of oil here. It's time for me to go ahead and add it to my melted beeswax. Now that oil was cold when I put it in, so it cooled the beeswax off a little bit. But it won't take just a minute for it all to melt and incorporate together. That's my beeswax pellets, the shea butter, and my infused herbal oil. I've got it all melted back down. I want to say it was maybe 1/4 of an ounce of shea butter, maybe a tablespoon. If you want to measure it in a tablespoon, it might be easier that way. Now there we go. Here's our salve. I'm going to bring it right over here, and I'm going to put it into the jars. And that's what I'll get. That's how much I'll get. From the ingredient amount that I shared with you. The 1 ounce of beeswax, the 1 cup of oil strained that it was infused with mullein, about 5 or 6 drops of thyme oil. I added white, and I realized that it wasn't the red, so I added more. And then just about 3 drops of thyme oil, and then rosemary oil, about 5 or 6 drops of rosemary, and 3 drops in this smaller one. So I'm going to let these cool off, and then I'm going to label these gardener's salve, and I'll have them this year to put on my hands, my cracked hands, when I'm out in the garden. When I come back in and wash my hands really good, I'll be able to put some of this salve on, and it'll help my hands. You can see I've already got a little bit scuffed up. I got a little bit of roughness there, a little scrape, and that happens to me often. But this salve really saves my hands, and I'll put it around the cuticles and around my fingernails. And it'll help my fingernails not to be as hard and dry, and they won't break off as easily as they do when I don't use this. Now, when you're out in the garden using your hands, they get rough. They can sometimes get stained and dry and cracked and scraped. And, just they can get chapped from washing them so much. When you're coming out of the garden, and you might do that several times a day when you work out there, and then your hands will be really chapped. But this gardener's salve, whichever way you choose it. Now, I've got a video on how to make gardener's salve in my channel that I made either last year or maybe 2 years ago, and it's a really good salve, and it's similar to this, just slightly different. I used comfrey and that infused oil, but you can use any herbal infusion that is good for healing, that's good for your skin. They make excellent oils to add to this to help your hands heal and to soothe them. This also makes an excellent gift. If you've got a gardener in your family, and if you're celebrating a birthday or some kind of appreciation, me and my friends give gifts. When we get together, we give small gifts that we've picked up in the distance, the time that we have been apart. If we see something and it makes us think of that friend, then we'll pick it up or make it or have it for our friends. So this will be an excellent gift to give for a friend that who gardens and who can use this salve. It looks beautiful in a basket when you get the lid on it. Now, I let it cool down really good before I add it to before I put the lid on, or put it up into storage. I let it get good and cool until it's a solid before I put this lid on, because if you put it on with it hot like it is right now, it can build up condensation on top of your ointment or maybe on your lid, and that's not something that you want to happen. You want it to get solid and cool down before you put your lid on it. But when you do get your lid on it and you put your label on it, I got these cute labels I've had for a while, It's the one I used last year, and the one, I'll use. But when I get this lid on this salve, I'll put this label on top of this lid, and it'll just be really pretty. It'll make a really pretty gift. Now I've got this label on here that goes on this little jar right here. As I let these cool, I'm going to go ahead and make one for this. They sell these at most stores. You can get them at all different stores that sell ball products. This is a leak-proof airtight lid, and this is just a little half, well, it might be a quarter of a pint or a half. I'm not sure. I think this might be a half pint. No, I think it's a quarter of a pint. This little jar, these little cannon jars, you can get them. You can buy them, and these fit on here, and they make nice presentations when you want to give them as gifts. These tags are really pretty. And I just call this gardener's salve. Now this salve that I have here has a pretty medicinal smell. I mean, it's a strong smell because it's got this red thyme in it. Red thyme, I have red thyme and white thyme. Red thyme is one of my favorites. Now it smells really medicinally. It smells like medicine. When you smell it, it's a unique smell. But I love the properties of this herb. I love the properties of this essential oil. It's from thyme, red thyme, and it really adds an antibacterial element to this salve, so I use it every year. You can use something like pine needle. Pine needle has a wonderful scent for a gardener's salve, and it can be a masculine or a feminine scent, whichever the person you're making it for or for yourself. Of course, I added rosemary because I love the smell of rosemary. But you can add lemongrass or something that is more, has a lighter scent if that's what you like. Lemongrass is a wonderful herb, essential oil to add to this, or herb infused oil. You can infuse calendula. Calendula makes a beautiful oil to add to this. You can infuse lavender. Lavender makes a beautiful salve. I'm talking about the oil, that we added, the 1 cup of oil that we added to our salve. You can, I, of course, infused mullein this year. Last year I used comfrey, but any good herb that has the qualities that you're looking for a salve, you can use that, and of course you have to let that set for at least 6 months. Now this mullein I harvested last year, and I made this mullein oil infusion. Let's see when I made that. Here's the little container it was in. I set it in the sink because we got a little more oil that's coming out, and this is hard earned, so I try and save every bit of it I can. But I think, see what the date on this is. So yeah, this is last year. So July 5th, 2023 is when I harvested this mullein. I harvested the mullein before that and dried it probably for at least a month. So I harvested the mullein probably around June, dried it, and then put the dried herb in this little jar and poured oil over it. It sounds like a tongue twister. And poured the oil over it. And you can use whatever oil you usually use. Sometimes I put it on the label what oil I used, but I didn't this time. But I either use fractionated coconut oil or I use olive oil to make infusions lately. So that the preparation for this salve it began in June of 2023 when I harvested this mullein, dried it, And then after it was probably dried, probably say at least 3 to 4 weeks, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, when it's good and brittle and dry, all the moisture's out of it, then you pack it, your jar 3/4 full, and then you fill your jar with your oil of choice. Now, I'm telling you all of that to say that's how I get the herbal oil to go in the salve when I add beeswax, and we've got a little bit left in here. Let's just go ahead and top that off. When you've worked hard to harvest your herbs and to make your infusion, you don't want to waste a drop of it. So we'll put that back in here. But what I was saying is we had that herb infused oil. We used 1 cup of that, and we added our 1 ounce of beeswax and our tablespoon of shea butter. And then we added our essential oils. And that's the recipe for this herbal salve. You can customize that to something that you would fit your needs, or a friend or whoever you're giving a gift to of this salve. You can customize it to their needs. If you know they love the smell of lemongrass, you can certainly use that essential oil in place of any of the others that I've got over here. And if, say, they love lavender or calendula, that calendula oil infusion is wonderful. It makes a lighter yellow color, and when you finished your salve and it's about at this stage, you can take a few calendula petals and just put it on top. Or if you made lavender, you can take a few lavender, dried, of course they need to be dried, lavender and calendula, whatever kind of combination of oils that you want, customized for your preference or for the person you're going to give the gift to. You can just put a few little lavender buds on top, and it just looks really pretty. It makes a beautiful gift. And of course, when this cools off and we get the lid on it, it'll be everything we need it to be. You can also do the same with these. You can put your salve in these, and it's got a screw-on lid, and you put your label on top, and these work well too. So however you choose to package it, and if you don't want to put a lot of money into it, you can certainly recycle a jar like this. I think pimento peppers come in this. And then here's one, I'm not even sure what came in this. I've had it for a while, but this would be a good salve jar. I like the jars that are dark. I like, to use the dark green, the dark blue, or the amber jars. But here you see I have one that's not dark, so either one of these. I think the essential oils and the ingredients that are in here last longer if it's in a dark jar. But now you can use any jar you want. If you're going to use it up, like this one, you would use up probably a lot quicker. Since it's about the half size of that, you would use this one up a lot quicker than you would this one. This one lasted me all year, that size. That's exactly what I made it in last year, and it lasted me for a whole year. So that is up to you, what you choose or how you want to customize it. There's options, if you're not particularly fond of the red thyme, because it does have a medicinal smell. The closest thing I can tell you about is Listerine. Listerine has thyme oil in it. It's one of its ingredients, and if you know what Listerine smells like, the gold old school Listerine, then you'll know what that thyme smells like. If you are not familiar with it, that's the smell that it has. So, if you want to customize it to a more pleasant lemongrass smell, well, you can certainly do that. That's an option. But I'm going to let this cool, and then I'm going to put the lid on it, and then I'm going to store it. I will probably put one of these in my gardening bag outside, and then that way, after I wash my hands outside, I can go ahead and put this on, especially if I get any kind of little nicks. You can see I got a little nick right here. I can put it right on there. It'll soothe it. It'll feel better. And, of course, it'll fight bacteria. You don't want anytime you break your skin, it's creates an opening for bacteria. So you want to put something to cover that. This ointment is this gardener salve is a good thing to cover it until you can get inside and clean it up and get you a bandage on it. So it's a great thing to use for that, and that's how I use it every year. I also give it for gifts. I hope this helped you in some way. I hope this encouraged you to make some salve for yourself. You saw how easy it is. Just takes a few minutes here. I've probably talked more than it took to make this salve. So, you know, that's you can see it's cooling off, and as it cools off, it'll firm up and it'll make a good salve. Then we can put our lids on and put it where we need it for it to go. I thank you for joining me today, and like always, until next time.